inviting me to speak on a topic very close to my heart, which is inclusion. I am Femi, as introduced, a deaf professional building career in information technology and community development. So, as a deaf person, inclusion is a freedom on its own, the freedom to learn, the freedom to work, the freedom to create and to share my skills without being limited by communication gaps. It means my ideas are heard and my contributions respected. So let's say inclusion is more than simply allowing deaf people into a room of people. It fully means full participation where communication, accessibility, and respect are built in every space. It means I don't have to fight for sign language interpretation, captions, or visual alerts. They are already part of the plan. So let's use an example of real life. Let's say inclusion in an inclusive education classroom. There should be sign language interpreters, caption videos, teachers who learn basic science. There should be equal job opportunities, and colleagues at work should treat deaf staff as valued team members. And let's say at public events, hospitals, and government offices, information should be made accessible without barriers. So, to inclusion starts with attitude of people towards the deaf is the most supreme. If we are talking about inclusion of deaf people, we should not relate with their deafness. Instead, we should identify their expertise, their capabilities, and patronize them, and also help them to explore. So this is what inclusion really means. Attitudinal is very important. So communicating with them through sign language interpreters or in a clear written communication. And let me say, it will be a lot easier if everyone can sign for a free flow communication. For example, now, if the staff of this NGO have the knowledge of sign language or the interpreter is not available at the point of time, we can forge ahead. Right. So it will be very much more easier if everyone can sign. And we should endeavor to involve deaf people in planning, not just as guests, but as decision makers. As inclusion is not charity, it is equal rights. So finally, let me say, inclusion to me is like the word saying you belong here. And we will meet you where you are. So generally, let us raise that word together. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. So for ease of communication, I see that someone is interpreting in the house. So I will rely on my interpreter. This one, thank you so much for the beautiful job you're doing with the interpretation. And I came in while I met a speaker already speaking, and I'm just going to be building on the conversation he already started. And I mean, very wholesome conversation that he had already started. I'll share my screen. I did prepare just some short slides to just run us through and to see what we are doing at the DefInTech. Let me know if you can see my screen.
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, good. My name is Arolo Ayola, and I work at Data Lead Africa, and Data Lead Africa has a social enterprise, which is the DefInTech. First, at Data Lead Africa, we are a business. We are a tech firm leading research, and leading data analytics within the sub-Saharan Africa. And part of our contribution to the society is what birthed the Deaf in Tech. So the Deaf in Tech is born as our social contribution to the society from Data Lead Africa, and I currently lead that. So today I'm going to be talking about the bridging the digital divide. And I will start with a proverb. So there's this African proverb that says that when the drum beats only for the chief, the village forgets how to dance.
Wow.
What we are saying is that if we have a drum that we only play it for the king, soon the entire village will not know how to dance because the drum is played only for the king, for the chief. That's what society has looked like in the past years. We have designed a society that works for certain kind of people. It now begins to look like certain part of the community are not able. But we have not been beating the drum for them. We have been beating the drum for the chief only. We have designed a society that works only for the hearing people. In fact, our society is so complex that we designed it only for the able-bodied. And this is largely because of our culture of exclusion. The natural human culture is very exclusive. For example, if you come to any parastatal in Nigeria or within the African society, you can know who is the head of the organization by the language that is spoken by the majority of the people. So if an Hausa man is the DG, what he does is that he designed the system to favor only his type. If a Yoruba man is the minister, once you enter that agency, you will notice that everybody is speaking Yoruba because he designed the system to only work for his kind. You know, it's our human nature of exclusion, that exclusive nature of human. And the same way, the hearing people over the years, we have designed a system that only works for us. It now makes it look like it is the hearing that is intelligent. It is the hearing that is capable. It is the hearing that can do this and do that. But it is only because we have only designed the system, we have only been beating the drum for the chief, for our own type, you know. And this is one major shift that needs to happen in the society. Look at our country, look at our nation. I mean, you can almost see the intentionality of our design, that we designed everything for our type. Go to the airport. You will notice that in our airports, we have somebody who is announcing the flights because he assumes that everybody is hearing. So we designed our airports only for the hearing. Nobody thought that, what about people who won't be able to hear and they are in the airport and needs to know their time of flight? We designed our schools for the hearing. That's why all our teachers from the Nigerian, our colleges of education are only trained to teach only one kind of population, the hearing. So our schools, even though we say on policy, on paper, that we are inclusive, the schools are not inclusive because we never designed it so. We designed it for the hearing. You go to our military, you go to our security architecture, everything is designed for the hearing, okay? So suddenly, it now looks as if the entire village don't know how to dance, but we actually have been beating the drum for the chief only. And in our own case, the chief is the hearing people. We've designed the system to favor us. And this is why initiative like what the CDIA is leading is very important to society. Having these conversations around inclusion, to shift the mind of people that, see, the world is not just made of your type. There are other class of humans that makes up society, and we must design for them. So the digital world, like the drum, was meant to unify. It was meant to set a rhythm that can make all of us move to a dance. But the reality is that persons with disabilities, especially in Africa, often stand at the edge, watching others dance to a rhythm that they cannot hear, that they cannot access, and they cannot participate in. Not because they lack the potential, but because the system was not designed for them. I used to tell a story. I came into the disability conversation through a friend of mine that we were in the university together. He was doing a diploma, I was doing a degree program, and he was deaf. We were roommates. And fast forward many years later, I graduated to finish my first degree. He did his diploma and finished. I went on to do my master's, went on to do my PhD, but he couldn't proceed with life, with his educational opportunities, just because the opportunities are limited for him. Many years later, I'm able to start up my career. He couldn't start up his, because systemically, we have created a system that limits him, not because he does not have the ability and the capacity to grow, but because the system was skewed in a way that does not allow him to grow. And the same thing tech is now. Everyone here that is hearing can easily pick up a tech skill, but it is not the same with the disability community, especially the deaf community. And I have this quote that is in my office. And I said, when policies and technologies ignore diversity, they are not neutral. Whatever thing that we are doing that ignores diversity, don't think that we are being neutral, that we are being indifferent. No, the designer has taken a side that oppresses the people that are left out. Just last week, I wanted to pick up a friend of mine who is on wheelchair. And I told him to meet me on the side of the road. But look at the irony. The person who designed what we call flyovers. Have you seen flyovers in Nigeria? All these things that they put pedestrian flyovers. So somebody collected millions of naira and designed a pedestrian flyover. But in his mind, he never thought that there are people who are on wheelchair. How will they cross the express? If a person who is on wheelchair is in Lagos, how will he cross from one side of the express to the other? If he is not. So the designer has taken side with the oppressed, So whether we are not neutral, we are oppressing a people group. We are oppressing the deaf community. We are oppressing the blind community. We are oppressing the people on wheel. And for crying out loud, nobody chooses disability. Disability chooses us. Nobody just comes and says, God, I will prefer to be deaf, or I will prefer to be blind. Disability chooses us. And that's why our policies, our framework must be diversified, must embrace diversity, so that we do not oppress the people who are left out. So this divide didn't just appear, we built it intentionally. So oftentimes when I'm called for webinars like this, I like to hammer on the facts that we have intentionally built the divide. We have intentionally built a system that works for us. We have intentionally left some people out. And the only way back is to intentionally now start to build to include. We can't treat it like charity. I think the last person said, inclusion is not charity. You didn't exclude me charitably. You excluded me intentionally. So it is time to also include me intentionally. And that's where I'm really, really proud of organizations like what your organization is doing. trying to bring the conversation. It must be intentional, both at policy level and at implementation level. So why this conversation matters, I'm going to be narrowing it down to tech. Digital divide disproportionately affects PWDs. Tech naturally should empower, it should not exclude. But what we have currently is that community is being excluded. Why are they being excluded? One, lack of sign language, lack of training in the use of tech, and limited access to even job pipelines when it comes to the tech space. Many deaf youths in Nigeria, even if they want to learn, there is no online training where you can wake up one night and say, I want to learn Python programming. And then you jump to Coursera, you go to Udemy, you go to YouTube, and you start learning Python programming, start learning Java, start learning HTML, start learning whatever you want to learn. But for the deaf, it's not so. They can't easily just jump on any platform because these platforms are not deaf-friendly, no caption. They are not taught in their language. They are not sign language friendly, okay? And so the digital divide is not just a tech issue, it's an human rights issue, where we are saying from childhood, the way children from primary school are being introduced to tech, that's how the deaf child must be introduced to tech from childhood, using the language that he understands, which is the sign language. Sign language is his own native language, like Yoruba, like Igbo, like English. His native language is sign, and tech must be taught in that language, right from primary school through to his graduation. So bridging this divide will not happen by goodwill. It will not happen by charity. It must be deliberate. That's why what we are doing at Deaf in Tech is an intentional intervention. During holidays, we gather the deaf children. We do what is called the Tech Bootcamp. We currently have just one Tech Bootcamp in the entire country, Nigeria, where children, deaf kids, can come and camp for a month and learn tech. But compare that with the opportunity that avails the hearing children. During holidays, you will see plenty adverts here and there of people saying, come and do summer boot camp, come bring your children to learn tech. But as I speak today, there is only one known tech boot camp in this country that gathers children and teach tech, camp them for the entire month. What do we want? We want more of this to happen. We want CDI, we want different organizations to see this as a matter of urgency so that we don't fail the deaf child in our respective states. How can we begin to gather these kids during their holidays when they are not in school to begin to teach them tech, because tech is the language of their generation. The 21st century child that does not have tech skill will be missing out a lot. So our advocacy is not, don't wait for deaf in tech. We want to see this multiplying. This is why I love when the person who spoke before me was talking about an AI program that they are trying to launch. We want to see that happening. Deaf in Tech wants to partner with you, wants to support you, wants to amplify whatever can get the deaf child early on tech. Start very early in Ogun, in Osun, in Odo, everywhere in the country. The time to run at this tech skill for deaf child is now. We can't wait to continue to pay lip service with tech skills for our deaf kids. We also need to begin to advocate for inclusive designs. If you look at our government agencies and the way we design our website, the UI UX does not really think of persons with disability. We need to begin to champion this, okay? Most recently, the Minister of ICT, Dr. Bosun Tijani, was speaking about redesigning government websites. And one of his aim is because the sites must become inclusive for persons who are blind, inclusive for persons who are deaf. And targeted investment in skills, I can't overemphasize this. Look at most recently, last year, the government started a program called 3MTT. I don't know if we are aware of it. 3MTT, 3 million technical training. The government wants to train 3 million people. But do you know the shocker? In the 3 million people, they never designed that deaf people should be part of the people that will be trained. So they did this 3MTT. Some of our deaf people applied, but they got to the training platform. There are no tech trainers who are sign language enabled. And you cannot use interpreter to teach tech. I cannot come to class trying to teach you programming. Then instead of your eyes being on the board, being on the screen, looking at my programming, your eyes will be on the interpreter. You can't learn tech using an interpreter. You need somebody who is able to teach directly in your language. And this is why at Deaf in Tech, we first trained our interpreter in tech so that the deaf and the interpreters can teach directly in a language that the deaf can understand, not going through another permeable, another membrane, going through another system that makes learning complex for them. But here is it. The government invested to train 3 million people and never thought of persons with disability, never thought of the deaf community. This advocacy must become very intense. We must hold government, and we also must step into that room where we are providing this training. The deaf child needs us, and he needs us urgently. I can't imagine that a deaf child grows and becomes 20, becomes 25, becomes 30, and does not know how to use the tech tool. Then we that have designed the system that excluded him have failed that child, okay? And this is why this conversation matters to every one of us. Policy and institutional reform. There must be a national digital strategy that includes disability framework. This is what we've been championing with NIFTA, that we've been championing with the ministry that, see, you can't continue to design without the disability community. So our policy must recognize that there is this community. I'd like to thank you for listening.